But when we pass from individual forms of life to life in general and inquire whether the same law is seen in the ensemble of its manifestations, whether modern plants and animals are of more heterogeneous structure than ancient ones, and whether the Earth's present flora and fauna are more heterogeneous than the flora and fauna of the past, we find the evidence so fragmentary that every conclusion is open to dispute. 3/5 of the Earth's surface being covered by water, a great part of the exposed land being inaccessible to or untraveled by the geologist. The greater part of the remainder having been scarcely more than glanced at, and even the most familiar portions, as England, having been so imperfectly explored that a new series of strata has been added within these 4 years, it is impossible for us to say with certainty what creatures have and what have not existed at any particular period, considering the perishable nature of many of the lower organic forms, the metamorphosis of numerous sedimentary strata, and the great gaps occurring among the rest. We shall see further reason for distrusting our deductions. On the one hand, the repeated discovery of vertebrate remains in strata previously supposed to contain 9 of reptiles, where only fish were thought to exist, of mammals, where it was believed there were no creatures higher than reptiles, renders it daily more manifest how small is the value of negative evidence. On the other hand, the worthlessness of the assumption that we have discovered the earliest, or anything like the earliest, organic remains, is becoming equally clear that the oldest known sedimentary rocks have been greatly changed by igneous action, and that still older ones have been totally transformed by it is becoming undeniable, and the fact that sedimentary strata earlier than any we know have been melted up being admitted, it must also be admitted that we cannot say how far back in time this destruction of sedimentary strata has been going on. Thus, the title _pale tilde a broken bar is oic _ as applied to the earliest known fossiliferous strata involves a _petitio principi _ and for aught we know to the contrary, only the last few chapters of the Earth's biological history may have come down to us on neither side. Therefore, is the evidence conclusive? Nevertheless, we cannot but think that, scanty as they are the facts taken altogether tend to show both that the more heterogeneous organisms have been evolved in the later geologic periods, and that life in general has been more heterogeneously manifested as time has advanced. Let us cite in illustration the one case of the vertebrata the earliest known vertebrate remains are those of fishes, and fishes are the most homogeneous of the vertebrata. Later and more heterogeneous are reptiles. Later still and more heterogeneous still are birds and mammals. If it be said that the Palaeozoic deposits, not being estuary deposits, are not likely to contain the remains of terrestrial vertebrata, which may nevertheless have existed at that era, we reply that we are merely pointing to the leading facts such as they are but to avoid any such criticism, let us take the mammalian subdivision. Only the earliest known remains of mammals are those of small marsupials, which are the lowest of the mammalian type, while conversely the highest of the mammalian type man is the most recent. The evidence that the vertebrate fauna as a whole has become more heterogeneous is considerably stronger to the argument that the vertebrate fauna of the Palaeozoic period, consisting so far as we know entirely of fishes was less heterogeneous than the modern vertebrate fauna, which includes reptiles, birds, and mammals of multitudinous genera. It may be replied, as before, that estuary deposits of the Palaeotilde-Broken-Barozoic period could we find them might contain other orders of vertebrata, but no such reply can be made to the argument that whereas the marine vertebrata of the Palaeotilde-Broken-Barozoic period consisted entirely of cartilaginous fishes, the marine vertebrata of later periods include numerous genera of osseous fishes, and that, therefore, the later marine vertebrate faunas are more heterogeneous than the oldest known one, nor, again, can any such reply be made to the fact that there are far more numerous orders and genera of mammalian remains in the tertiary formations than in the secondary formations. Did we wish merely to make out the best case, we might dwell upon the opinion of Drive Carpenter, who says that the general facts of Palaeotilde-Broken-Barontology appear to sanction the belief that that same plan may be traced out in what may be called the general life of the globe as in the individual life of every one of the forms of organized being, which now people, it, or we might quote as decisive. The judgment of Professor Owen, who holds that the earlier examples of each group of creatures severally departed less widely from archetypal generality than the later examples were severally less unlike the fundamental form common to the group as a whole, and thus constituted a less heterogeneous group of creatures. But in deference to an authority for whom we have the highest respect, who considers that the evidence at present obtained does not justify a verdict either way. We are content to leave the question open to whether an advance from the homogeneous to the heterogeneous is or is not displayed in the biological history of the globe. It is clearly enough displayed in the progress of the latest and most heterogeneous creature, man. It is true alike that during the period in which the Earth has been peopled, the human organism has grown more heterogeneous among the civilized divisions of the species, and that the species as a whole has been growing more heterogeneous in virtue of the multiplication of races and the differentiation of these races from each other. In proof of the first of these positions, we may cite the fact that in the relative development of the limbs, the civilized man departs more widely from the general type of the placental mammalia than do the lower human races, while often possessing well-developed body and arms. The Australian has very small legs, thus reminding us of the chimpanzee and the gorilla, which present no great contrasts in size between the hind and fore limbs, but in the European, the greater length and massiveness of the legs have become marked. The fore and hind limbs are more heterogeneous. Again, the greater ratio which the cranial bones bear to the facial bones illustrates the same truth among the vertebrata. In general, progress is marked by an increasing heterogeneity in the vertebral column, and more especially in the segments constituting the skull. The higher forms being distinguished by the relatively larger size of the bones which cover the brain, and the relatively smaller size of those which form the jaws. See now, this characteristic, which is stronger in man than in any other creature, is stronger in the European than in the savage. Moreover, judging from the greater extent and variety of faculty he exhibits, we may infer that the civilized man has Also, a more complex or heterogeneous nervous system than the uncivilized man, and indeed the fact is in part visible in the increased ratio which his cerebrum bears to the subjacent ganglia, as well as in the wider departure from symmetry in its convolutions. If further elucidation be needed, we may find it in every nursery. The infant European has sundry marked points of resemblance to the lower human races, as in the flatness of the alley tilde broken bar of the nose, the depression of its bridge, the divergence and forward opening of the nostrils, the form of the lips, the absence of a frontal sinus, the width between the eyes, the smallness of the legs, now as the developmental process by which these traits are turned into those of the adult European is a continuation of that change from the homogeneous to the heterogeneous displayed during the previous evolution of the embryo, which every anatomist will admit. It follows that the parallel developmental process by which the like traits of the barbarous races have been turned into those of the civilized races has also been a continuation of the change from the homogeneous to the heterogeneous. The truth of the second position that mankind as a whole have become more heterogeneous is so obvious as scarcely to need illustration. Every work on ethnology, by its divisions and subdivisions of races, bears testimony to it, even were we to admit the hypothesis that mankind originated from several separate stocks. It would still remain true that as from each of these stocks there have sprung many now widely different tribes, which are proved by philological evidence to have had a common origin. The race as a whole is far less homogeneous than it once was. Add to which that we have in the Anglo-Americans an example of a new variety arising within these few generations, and that, if we may trust to the descriptions of observers, we are likely soon to have another such example in Australia. On passing from humanity under its individual form to humanity as socially embodied, we find the general law still more variously exemplified. The change from the homogeneous to the heterogeneous is displayed in the progress of civilization as a whole, as well as in the progress of every nation, and is still going on with increasing rapidity as we see in existing barbarous tribes society in its first and lowest form is a homogeneous aggregation of individuals having like powers and like functions. The only marked difference of function being that which accompanies difference of sex. Every man is warrior, hunter, fisherman, toolmaker, builder. Every woman performs the same drudgeries very early. However, in the course of social evolution, there arises an incipient differentiation between the governing and the governed. Some kind of chieftainship seems coeval with the first advance from the state of separate wandering families to that of a nomadic tribe. The authority of the strongest or the most cunning makes itself felt among a body of savages, as in a herd of animals or a posse of schoolboys. At first, however, it is indefinite, uncertain, is shared by others of scarcely inferior power, and is unaccompanied by any difference in occupation or style of living. The first ruler kills his own game, makes his own weapons, builds his own hut, and, economically considered, does not differ from others of his tribe. Gradually, as the tribe progresses, the contrast between the governing and the governed grows more decided. Supreme power becomes hereditary in one family. The head of that family, ceasing to provide for his own wants, is served by others, and he begins to assume the sole office of ruling. At the same time, there has been arising a coordinate species of government, that of religion, as all ancient records and traditions prove. The earliest rulers are regarded as divine personages. The maxims and commands they uttered during their lives are held sacred after their deaths, and are enforced by their divinely descended successors, who, in their turns, are promoted to the pantheon of the race, here to be worshipped and propitiated along with their predecessors, the most ancient of whom is the supreme God, and the rest subordinate gods. For a long time, these forms of government, civil and religious, remain closely associated. For many generations, the king continues to be the chief priest, and the priesthood to be members of the royal race. For many ages, religious law continues to include more or less of civil regulation, and civil law to possess more or less of religious sanction, and even among the most advanced nations, these two controlling agencies are by no means completely separated from each other, having a common root with these, and gradually diverging from them. We find yet another controlling agency, that of ceremonial usages. All titles of honor are originally the names of the God King, afterwards of the God and the King, still later of persons of high rank, and finally come some of them to be used between man and man. All forms of complimentary address were at first the expressions of submission from prisoners to their conqueror, or from subjects to their ruler, either human or divine expressions, which were afterwards used to propitiate subordinate authorities, and slowly descended into ordinary intercourse. All modes of salutation were once obeisances made before the monarch and used in worship of him after his death. Presently, others of the God-descended race were similarly saluted, and by degrees some of the salutations have become the due of all three. Thus, no sooner does the originally homogeneous social mass differentiate into the governed and the governing parts, then this last exhibits an incipient differentiation into religious and secular, church and state, while at the same time there begins to be differentiated from both that less definite species of government which rules our daily intercourse, a species of government which, as we may see in heralds, colleges, in books of the peerage, in masters of ceremonies is not without a certain embodiment of its own. Each of these is itself subject to successive differentiations. In the course of ages, there arises, as among ourselves, a highly complex political organization of monarch, ministers, lords, and commons, with their subordinate administrative departments, courts of justice, revenue offices. C. Supplemented in the provinces by municipal governments, county governments, parish or union governments, all of them more or less elaborated by its side. There grows up a highly complex religious organization with its various grades of officials, from archbishops down to sextons, its colleges, convocations, ecclesiastical courts. C. To all which must be added the ever-multiplying independent sects, each with its general and local authorities, and at the same time there is developed a highly complex aggregation of customs, manners, and temporary fashions enforced by society at large, and serving to control those minor transactions between man and man which are not regulated by civil and religious law. Moreover, it is to be observed that this increasing heterogeneity in the governmental appliances of each nation has been accompanied by an increasing heterogeneity in the assemblage of governmental appliances of different nations, all nations, being more or less unlike in their political systems and legislation, in their creeds and religious institutions, in their customs and ceremonial usages. Simultaneously, there has been going on a second differentiation of a more familiar kind, that, namely, by which the mass of the community has been segregated into distinct classes and orders of workers, while the governing part has undergone the complex development above detailed. The governed part has undergone an equally complex development, which has resulted in that minute division of labor characterizing advanced nations. It is needless to trace out this progress from its first stages up through the caste divisions of the East and the incorporated guilds of Europe to the elaborate producing and distributing organization existing among ourselves. It has been an evolution which, beginning with a tribe whose members severally perform the same actions, each for himself, ends with a civilized community whose members severally perform different actions for each other, and an evolution which has transformed the solitary producer of any one commodity into a combination of producers who, united under a master, take separate parts in the manufacture of such commodity. But there are yet other and higher phases of this advance from the homogeneous to the heterogeneous. In the industrial organization of society, long after considerable progress has been made in the division of labor among different classes of workers, there is still little or no division of labor among the widely separated parts of the community. The nation continues comparatively homogeneous in the respect that in each district the same occupations are pursued. But when roads and other means of transit become numerous and good, the different districts begin to assume different functions and to become mutually dependent. The calico manufacture locates itself in this county. The woolen cloth manufacture in that silks are produced. Here, lace their stockings in one place, shoes in another, pottery, hardware, cutlery come to have their special towns, and ultimately every locality becomes more or less distinguished from the rest by the leading occupation carried on in it. This